Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local.
But let's dive into the search material. So Google showed two things, broadly speaking. They showed a what they called an AI snapshot or generative AI integrated into their existing search results. They showed a bunch of screenshots. They went through a couple of user scenarios. And then they also showed what I called in an article yesterday, Bard Plus, which is the integration of different kinds of content into Bard, an expansion of Bard's capabilities, and the addition of third-party extensions to Bard, which presumably will bring the benefit of their structured data and information to Bard. So there's a kind of a parallel universe. The search generative experience, which is only going to be available through Google Labs to a group of trusted testers or a small subset of the audience initially, and this sort of more expanded version of Bard, which is sort of paradoxically more broadly available right now to the entire audience. And I guess they're being more cautious with their search experience because that's the cash cow, that's the main product, and they don't want to F it up or expose it to too much ridicule ahead of time. I mean, they want people who are going to be friendly and give them honest feedback, good feedback, so that they can refine and tweak. But let's talk about the search generative experience and what that was and what that looked like. So,
well, I think the example they used was a shopping example, was it not? About
there was a
complicated query about looking for bikes to use as a commuter bike.
E-bikes, yeah.
E-bikes that could be used as a commuter bike
that can
for a 5-mile commute. Actually, it was a query for a good bike for a 5-mile commute with hills. That was the query, and it brought up a interesting sort of AI first description of potential models, but then scrolling above that were shopping cart options, shopping ads right immediately above it that scrolled across. And then you could expand that search fairly easily.
Right at the bottom, they had predefined follow-up queries, and then there was sort of a general follow-up prompt where you could ask another open-ended question in context, and it would remember the previous information and build upon it. And
even that capability of being able to remember the context on the previous thing, just that would be valuable to people. Right. I mean, it's very frustrating to talk to Siri and have to start from scratch every time.
Yep.
You know, it's like, this is a capability that people need and want. It was kind of nice, but these kinds of searches apparently are not going to show up even in their test, or, it's not on every search that AI is going to be integrated into search. It's
although they didn't speak to that explicitly, did they? They didn't say it's only going to be occasionally. They were silent on that point.
I think Barry raised it in the Search Engine Land article that it would only address some subset of searches that are best dealt with, that don't have sort of definitive answers, that are sort of broader.
Oh, okay. Scope. All right. So yes, I do recall them saying something like that. So this will only be appearing part of the time.
Right.
But when it did appear, for people that didn't see the benefit of the screens or didn't watch the keynote, the generative AI piece basically occupied the entire top of the page. And from what I could tell, the entire screen for a mobile device and most of the screen, if not all of the screen on a desktop. That's how it looked to me, with maybe some organic, depending on how big your screen was, maybe some organic results peeked through at the bottom. They did a I think a hiking or a vacation query was one of them.
Yes. So comparing Bryce and Zion for a family
that's
with
right.
Dogs
It was
and kids.
Right. So I want to go on a vacation. Which canyon in Utah is better for families, etc. And there were no ads in that context. And they showed a generative AI result, the AI snapshot, they called it. And then there were 3 graphical kind of thumbnails in the upper right, which also had links, and those were third-party sites. Those were organic sites that you could click on and presumably go to. So that was interesting that they put in. That'll probably be an area where they put in visual information or other information, maybe ads eventually. But that was kind of like, that struck me as like, oh, this becomes a new SEO target, right? How do I get into, in the same way that you're talking about 3 LSA ads or the snippet or whatever, it's a coveted position within those results that people will aspire to.
And refutes the idea that about the end of SEO. I mean, SEO will probably change, but you still are going to need, firstly, the technical chops, put your site in shape to be eligible for this, and then the technical chops to be able to understand how to get it to rank for it. So it certainly won't deny the existence of SEO, at least that, BARD is a little different, but this was clearly it doesn't change the reality of SEO any.
Well, I mean, if we define SEO very broadly in terms of getting your content in front of people and search results, then it's never going to go away, right?
Right.
So,
but getting in front of people in a way that you actually can benefit from it directly is a slightly more nuanced view of it, and that could go away.
Well, I think that, I mean, what's fascinating to me is that Google was forced by competition to release BARD, maybe prematurely, maybe in a way that it didn't want to, because of ChatGPT and because of Bing. And now it's got these 2 properties, and it's trying to develop them both simultaneously. And the search results are going to be enhanced, not radically changed, but different. It'll be the equivalent of a giant snippet, which when it appears, it'll push organic content down the page. We think, based on the e-bike example, that the shopping ads will still be in a privileged position relative to the AI content. But one interesting thing to contemplate in the search generative experience, the traditional SERP, is what's going to happen to local. Right? If they didn't really show, I mean, the vacation example was sort of a quasi-local query.
Right.
But now if you do a commercial query for a local provider, restaurant, home services, lawyer, whatever, you get LSAs in many cases. You get the local pack. You get organic results. How is that going to change? I mean, we didn't see that yesterday. Are we going to see in the generative AI? Are we going to see a kind of a new type of local content presentation, or is the local pack somehow going to still be as prominent as it was, or is it just going to be further down the page? I mean, this is something that we don't know the answer to. It's interesting to think about. What do you think?
Well, the examples that they gave were both very high funnel exploratory examples.
Right.
In the case of the bike, the good bike for 5-mile commute with hills, that's very high level. We're not anywhere near needing a dealer. We don't know the price yet. We don't know,
yet they're serving ads that one can click on and, buy a bike.
They are serving ads. That's correct. Right. So they are looking to turn it into a transactional thing. The user isn't quite ready for it with that kind of query, although it does give people an idea of the pricing. But it seems premature in terms of that journey to be given an ad to buy it right up the beginning. But it was something, I don't know. I mean, it's a good question. We don't know what they're going to do with local. And one of the
interesting things, I mean, this is sort of what chat does, or SMS hypothetically. You can compress the funnel. If somebody wants to buy an e-bike, there's a way to compress the funnel by answering all their questions in a very, rapid way. So this is the function that generative AI could provide. If I'm just, I think I want to buy an e-bike. My old bike is busted. I now need to get a new bike. Hey, maybe I'll get an e-bike. If they enable somebody to go from the top of the funnel to very specific, to narrow it down to 2 or 3 models, because you can ask repeat questions and build on the previous information in context, that could really compress the funnel quite significantly. And you could save somebody a lot of time, and then, they could turn around and buy something that same day, or maybe later in the session even.
So for a buyer like me that researches for 2 years before they hit the buy button,
well, clearly not you.
Now all my research could be done in one day, and I'd still wait 3 years before I hit the buy button.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how this is clearly not, you're not I mean, maybe you are the person that they have in mind with this, but it'll be interesting to see how users react to it because, I mean, one of the questions is there more zero-click action here as a byproduct of this? I mean, what is your thought about that?
Well, I was just wondering about I don't know. I was thinking about the experience in aggregate, and I read somewhere that it's still quite slow, several seconds for this to appear, which is a very non-search-like experience, right? I mean, Google has spent so much energy speeding search up, at least in the trial period. And I wonder how much tolerance. I mean, clearly Google's not going to release, I don't think, a slow search product. So, and I don't know what's involved in speeding up generative AI to make it search level speeds. I'm just curious about the overall experience of this, which I have no insight into.
Well, we won't get access to it. I mean, did you sign up for the waiting list?
I did, yes.
Yeah, so did I. So we'll see if we get access to it. They'll probably look at our names and say, "Oh, these guys are going to criticize it, so we're not going to let them in."
Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.